guys, anybody there? Yo. Oh, we got quite a few. Okay. Sorry I was a little late, but I had to watch the last race at Del Mar. Hi, Tyler. How are you? You very well may be right. Father Sean. Now, since Father Sean is here, I have something special just for him.
I'd say the Lord has blessed us all today. It's just that he's been particularly good to me.
I thought you'd like that, Sean. It's always a good. The reason I'm playing it, those of you who don't know, we're on an X. I had a really good day. I put some picks in before I went to work, and they all came in, and I hit a monster pick 3 for the first 3 races. And Saratoga, the graveyard of favorites, it was totally true. The whole day was chalk, just couldn't buy one. And I got 7-1 with Con Man in the first race, and that sort of set the tone. Then I got 15-1 with Chief of Peace. And then I got Tennessee Belle, who I thought was out of the race. How that horse was at 5-1, I have no idea. But $640 pick 3. And then I had to get called away, so I couldn't bet it. This is going to kill you guys. I had sidearm in the 4th race at 26-1. And I literally couldn't bet it. And I'm just kicking myself because that would have been another monster. So for the first 4 races, I just killed it. And Father Sean did really well too. So that's why we posted that. He and I have a little thing about the river runs through it. So yeah, it was a nice one. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, Tennessee Belle was a real, came out of nowhere. I thought she was dead. And then all of a sudden on the rail, I go, here she comes. And my eyes just exploded out of my head. And, but how are we all doing? Did anybody else have a good weekend? I had a pretty good weekend. I got my guns loaded, of course, in the Alabama. And Original Sin I got for second in the Pacific Classic. So I got, and then in the Del Mar Mile, I got the exacta there. So I had a pretty good day. All right, Father Sean with the trifecta. Jeannie's here. Paula's here. Good to see you guys. Carson Young, I had not seen you before. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. Hi, Joe. Paula Elson and Paula Groves are here. We have so many Paulas. Where's Debbie? Joe, I don't see her yet. She must be coming in later. Okay, well, without further ado, like we talked about last week, the past performances for the Saratoga on Saturday just came out. Hi, Debbie. So I got the Travers, and I've got the whole card, obviously, and so I thought we'd take a look at the Travers. Wanted to talk a little bit. Did anybody see the second race at Saratoga yesterday? Because I'm just curious. Because, it's not often you're going to hear from me that I wonder about the race itself. But if you go back and watch that race, all right, good for you, Sean. Yeah, Rothschild. But I have to tell you, That was a very strange race because Chad Brown had two horses in the race. They were both closing in the stretch, and they couldn't. They were right there. They looked like they were just going to go past Rothschild, and all of a sudden they didn't. And Rothschild just kept going. It was very, very strange. You don't see that very often. I've had that happen two more notable times, just to give you an idea about it. We're both in the Kentucky Derby. When Authentic beat Tis the Law, and when Medina Spirit beat Mandaloon. And there were two times, either race, I'm sure you guys remember them, right at the top of the stretch, Tis the Law looked poised and ready to get by Authentic, and he couldn't do it. And then Mandaloon at the top of the stretch in the Derby looked like he was going to blow right by Medina Spirit, and he didn't. And I was fit to be tied both of those races, I will tell you, because of Bob Baffert, and I was pretty pissed. The one at Saratoga yesterday, probably that one is more dubious to me than anything else. I just wondered about it. I was like, why couldn't they get by him? I mean, Rothschild's horse is notorious for, not finishing. And it was just really strange because they looked like they were going to pass him at the top of this, right at the turn. And then they didn't. And they just sort of stayed in second and third. So it happens to me too. If for those of you who complain about bad beats, I have had them myself, and that was one of them. And but it was a really strange race. I was just curious if anybody else had. No, it was no objection, Paula. There was no objection. It was one of those races that gives you pause, because when a front runner wins, when it looks like there's two horses about ready to blow right by him, and they don't. And you start kind of wondering a little bit if maybe there was some chicanery going on, especially in lieu of what's been going on lately. And it was just a really weird race. That's right. The objection was in another race. And I will be honest, most of the time I've ever been involved with an inquiry, it has never been an instance. It's been very rare where it's been an instance where I've said, "Oh, I haven't lost many of them," but when I have, most of the time I'm like, "Yeah, he deserves it." I can't think of any that right off the top of my head where I thought, "Oh, I should have lost." Siggy, we're gonna. Let me just say this about. I see a lot of people are starting to ask questions about the Travers. We're gonna go through the whole race. Okay. So, Siggy, I'm not doing to single you out, just so as an example, we're going to talk about Aselli. We're going to go through every course one by one. We're going to handicap the race. Just wanted to have a little preamble before we get to that, if that's okay. Let's see. What we got here? Prabhaka is here. Hi. I had 2-4, 4-2, and nice exactas. Oh, but I'm just reading Sean's, Father Sean. But I had a feeling if he's like Speed, I'd take a shot with a $10 win bet. Yay. A win is a win. That was a horse that, he's one of those horses that breaks your heart because you keep thinking he's better and he never seems to put it together. Well, he did yesterday. Maybe that's what they figured out about him, is that they finally need to put him on the lead. Something that was very interesting that happened today with the pick 3 that I hit. The second race, Chief of Peace, who was in Miguel Clement, first-time starter, I got at 15-1, which I couldn't believe. His rider was listed as Ricardo Santana, who won the first race for me on Conman. But actually, the winning jockey was Javier Castellano, but it wasn't listed in the past performances, and they didn't announce the change. A lot of people up in arms about it, thinking he should have been declared a non-starter. I'm glad he wasn't, but it's unusual when you don't see a jockey change like that. They don't announce it. It doesn't happen. Hi, Nina. Oh, yeah, we had a lot going on this week. I thought we maybe could talk a little bit. Have you commented on the veterans past performance? It broke last week. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Okay. I'm assuming, John, what you're referring to is Marshall Graham and accessing all of that HISA information. It's interesting. Good bit of investigative reporting, whoever broke the story. I don't know who exactly it was, but, that had come up a couple weeks ago on X. And somebody had posted past performances for deterministic in one of the horse, and noted that they, on the past performances, they listed the horse that had shockwave therapy, deterministic, and one other, I think Griffin something or other, Griffin's Wharf, I think it was. And everybody's like, well, how do I get those? Because obviously that's important information. Most of the time, the only way you're going to get any type of information like that is on Brisnet. They have a page in the back of the index, the scratches. And I'll tell you, I hit one today because, or yesterday, I got Prime Connection in the last race at 14-1, which kind of saved my day. It was an okay day Saturday, but I had a much better day today. Because And the Runner was the favorite. I believe or maybe it was today. I can't remember which. Was scratched for veterinary reasons. When the vets scratch a horse, that's bad, obviously, because, trainers a lot of times go, oh, it's not so bad, and they try to sneak him into a race. And the vets, if they scratch him, is obviously a soundness my That horse went off at a really short price. I wasn't about to bet, and I was right not to. My thoughts on it are I think John Stetton crystallized it very well, if you saw his comments on it. And a lot of people are blaming HISA for some reason, and I don't understand why. First of all, they caught him, which you can't blame them for that. They actually didn't sweep it under the rug or neglect it. They actually caught the guy, and they're going to take action against him. So Marshall Graham, to me, is the one to blame. Now, he obviously used his resources and his intellect for his own benefit, and he used information that we're not all privy to. And he used it. He may have just used it for claiming purposes, because he is an owner. 10 Strike Racing is a stable I'm well familiar with. He's Phil Graham's son, though some of you who know Senator from Texas, Phil Graham. And he's a math professor at Texas A&M. And he's got a lot of friends, and he's well known. He had a pretty good reputation until this. But there's really no denying the fact that he was using this information for his own purposes. I don't know how he could couch it any other way. And he has won some betting contests. He's a very active BCBC NHC player. And he, some people are pretty pissed because they got beaten out of some winnings on the tour. I think rightfully they should be. I think it's just indicative of one of the problems, the major overarching problem with horse racing that we face, and you kind of see it in the WNBA a little bit too, is people putting themselves ahead of the game repeatedly. And that goes from the top down. That's the pettiness that is involved in the way they're screwing up the Triple Crown. The constant, not elevating the game, elevating everybody to another level, bringing us down to our lowest with this type of stuff. And hey, Edwin Ochoa must be pretty happy because he got off the headlines. That's about, that scandal is, just as bad. It's people, trying to do things. They're cheaters. And listen, we know fixing races is, I mean, it's just sort of a thing we have to accept that it's going to happen on occasion. It generally doesn't happen at the bigger tracks. I've said that to you guys before. But obviously, Saratoga is about as big as you get, so it's not immune. Nobody is. But to me, if you had to, I mean, I think it's worse in some respects when somebody takes information just for themselves and uses their resources, uses their influence. He's a smart guy. He figured out how to do it. And he cheated all of us. I mean, it's unfortunate. And I've seen some notable people who shall remain nameless on X in particular and YouTube sort of defend the guy in some ways. I don't know how you defend him. I don't know how you do that. What can you say? I mean, how many black eyes can we get before we go blind? I mean, it's awful. I feel the same way most of you, I'm sure, do. But it's not Heise. I'm not blaming Heise for this one. This is an individual, and he's going to get his. I think that's pretty safe to say. He's already been thrown out of the jockey club. It's real easy to point the finger and say, well, it's an extension of, and just globally say, well, it's really the whole sport and everything else. No, this is an individual act. There's other problems. We know what they are. But this was an individual taking advantage of an unfair advantage over other people. And I don't see any way you can get around condoning it or saying that that's anything else but what it was. So, yeah, it's lousy. And the good news is he's going to get his. I think that's fairly certain. And so I would let me see. Now, I think that covers it. If you want to talk about it a little more, we can. I'm just going to go through some other comments, John, if that's all right. Let's see. Tyler says, I can't believe Knightsbridge got pushed that much on the pace and still looked extremely. It was a magnificent effort. Absolutely magnificent. There's no way around it. I mean, I was watching that race like you guys, and the first thing was when he was so wide at the beginning of the race, I said, how's he going to get to where he needs to? And they got him there. And once he was there, those fractions, I just was like, there's no way he's going to last. Well, he lasted and then some. And when you consider what he did in the Monmouth Cup, I mean, to me, it's all the more impressive. I just thought he might regress a little bit going that far, which he had never gone before. Just an incredibly impressive effort. I mean, now I don't know if he can do it again against the Breeders' Cup Classic type of field. But I will say he does have the right running style, being up near the pace. If he can do it again, if he's really a mile and a quarter horse, which he looks like he is, it may be Belmont 1, 2, maybe even 3 if Baeza gets his act together. He's going to be awful tough. It's going to be a really fun race indeed. Mr. Hill. Hi, Mr. Hill. How are you? Lackluster Travers? Same old, right? I mean, we got the same old folks we've seen all the time. A couple of new shooters. And like I said, we're going to go through the race. So hang tight on that. It's lackluster in that, we kind of know what they are at this point, right? I mean, nobody's really. I mean, Baby Vino was like the exception of one who sort of seems to be heading in the right direction. But when we go over it, we'll talk about all of them. This is My Father, the Judge, by the way. As you know, I like them. Thank you, John. I'm glad. If that's enough for you, I'm glad. Okay. Paula says, I don't get the big deal about shockwave therapy. My dog is getting it tomorrow. It's more what I would say, Paula, is, and obviously it didn't affect deterministic because he won and then he won again. 2 races in a row. I mean, he's a pretty good horse. What I would say is it's more about that information, the lack of transparency, that information wasn't available. Now, you or I might not take it, put the same weight on it that other people will, but as we know, everybody wants to know everything they can because this handicapping is tough. So the more information you have, the better. I think that's the issue more than anything else, is that people didn't know. And you're right. It obviously didn't affect deterministic. I don't think that's the reason he's doing as well as he is. But people want to know. And also, let's face it, and I'll be the first to admit I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. I try not to be, but we look for reasons why we don't win. And that's kind of part of it too. So it's just, there's been a constant argument, a constant position. You heard Carson talk a little bit about it when she was on, about Encompass, and said this information was public to everybody. It'd probably be a good PR move. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think some of this information, the NFL has its injury list, and the NHL still, as us hockey fans know, during the Stanley Cup, you don't know who's hurt or who isn't. And even during the regular season, they never tell you. They just say upper body, lower body injury. I don't know if it makes a difference one way or the other. To me, I think, like I was talking about earlier with And the Runner is, there's a lot of things in the past performances. You can determine the soundness of a horse just by the work tap. And the Runner is had a vet scratch, and then he had 2 works after that, and they was very sporadically placed. That tells me there's an issue. I didn't need medical records to tell me that. He didn't run that bad, but he didn't win. So it's just, we got so many bad looks in horse racing. This is really what it comes down to. So people are just looking for stuff. I don't know. I probably should be more of an advocate for transparency, but to me, most of the big stuff we're going to know about. They can't hide it when a horse has a condylar fracture, right? Or bowed tendons. They're not going to run a horse with those type of issues. They're going to scratch. It's the little things that a vet may, and the vets are pretty good. They're going to scratch him. Look at even the Kentucky Derby with Forte, Mike Rapoli. They scratched him before the Derby. He was the favorite. And they're still pissed off about it. They said, well, he probably could have run. He had some kind of issue, but, So I think they do make a very big effort to make sure healthy horses run. They don't want horses who are have a potential of breaking down run. But some people want they want the full transparency. So let's see. Mikey, we're going to go through the whole past performances, and you'll know exactly how I feel after we're done with it. Okay? So be patient. I wasn't expecting him to win at that distance. I always looked at him. Yeah, me too. I agree, Mikey. He showed a lot. He really did. I was very impressed by that. What I had said in my video presentation was Bill Mott had done that before with Cody's Wish, if you remember, in the Whitney. And that was a test. If he can make it around 2 turns, he can win this race. We'll put him in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Well, he didn't make it, so we put him in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, where he won easily. And that's what I was looking at. So I coupled that with the fact this horse has had soundness issues, and he beat, he walked in the park in the Monmouth Cup. I don't think that told us anything about him. But so I was skeptical. But boy, he proved me wrong. And it was very impressive. Very impressive. Hit Show didn't run a lick. Really, nobody else. It was interesting. Full Serrano, you know, who I didn't expect to run well, ran big. Hit Show didn't run very well at all. Original Sin had to come from Golden Tempo territory to get up for second. I knew he was going to be dangerous, and I got the exacta because of it. But Debbie, I'm interested to know what you mean by that. The speed number decrease. If you could just elaborate on that a little bit. Hey, Laura. Yes, you're right. It was. It was magnificent. Let's see. Jamie says, hi, Jamie, by the way. I didn't say hello to you. Not taking away from the performance, but that was apparently a timing error. Not sure what do you mean, the final time or for the Pacific Classic? I believe it was 2:01 and 4, if I'm not mistaken, which is a very good time for a mile and a quarter. Interesting decision for Godolphin and Monterey Knights. It is. It is indeed. Yeah, I don't know what they do. Don't forget you got Baeza. Well, Baeza's not Godolphin, but Belmont's got his handful. He could go 1, 2, 3 in the Classic. He could very well do it. Keeneland being the type of track it is, if there's indications, and you have to stress that, if there's indications that Knightsbridge is looking good, the track is favorable to him, I would say. It's usually pretty speed favored. We'll see, but no, long way away. We got to see how Sovereignty does against Forever Young of the Jockey Club first. Let's see. Jeannie says, the races that I thought it looked as if the rider of Miss Olivia, race number 9 at Ellis, was just riding a cowboy at the end with the reins, and the 30-1 shot beat me. Maybe let me know. I did not see the race, Jeannie. I haven't played Ellis at all this year, and I like it. I don't want I like the pea patch. I'm sort of thinking of, I want to start paying more attention to the Kentucky circuit. I really like it. I love it down there. I'm going to Keeneland in October. Uncle Sully already asked me. I'm not sure what weekend. I think it's probably going to be the first weekend in October. And any of y'all go down there, I'd love to meet up with you. But I don't. I wish I had more info for you, Jeannie. I'm sorry. I didn't watch it. I couldn't give you an honest opinion. I'll tell you, I got a little theory about that, Joe. As far as Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, Linda Rice, normally stalwarts, usually 1, 2, 3 in the trainer standings at Saratoga. I think it's the fact that the meet started as early as it did. I think their barns weren't ready for it yet. That's my thought. Now, I know Pletcher was having a bad Belmont at Aqueduct or whatever, Belmont Saratoga meet before that. But I think those first 3 weeks, they just weren't ready. I think Linda Rice took a little while to get her barn in gear. And Linda Rice has very specific races that she is very tough at Saratoga at. Anything off the turf, I've said this before, you look at those turf races, only at Saratoga, probably at Belmont too, or you see any turf race, the MTO entries are always Linda Rice. It's a cheap win because if it comes off the turf, she's got a dirt horse in there. It's a cheap win. It's an easy win. Linda Rice is very, very competitive. Claimers, she's very tough. Allowance level, she's pretty good. She's just, she's got a good barn, and she keeps doing. They tried to stop her in Kentucky from claiming horses because they said you have to keep them in Kentucky for a year, I think it was. But she was going down to Churchill Downs and claiming all kinds of horses, bringing them up to Saratoga and doing great. And she's still doing it. She's still claiming horses from Kentucky and bringing them up north. Her barn's just heated up. You know, she's always dangerous at Saratoga. Always. Rome, chiropractic, icing. Okay. One turn, 17. Does Mott send Knightsbridge one turn and Sovereignty 2 and get 2 instead of 1? It all depends what Godolphin wants to do. Don't forget, that's an extremely experienced outfit. They're very hands-on. They know exactly what they want. You know, who was it? I mean, I remember when the class of 07, they bought Street Sense and they bought Hard Spun. It'll likely have to do with what they perceive they need to do for their breeding value, would be my guess, Jamie. So if they say, well, Knightsbridge proved he can win around 2 turns and a mile and a quarter, classic distance, don't have to do that again. We already know he's really tough at 1 turn. So now we can have the prestige of a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile win. Maybe they'll think that way. Sovereignty, they've only got one way to go. That's a mile and a quarter horse. That's what he wants. That's what they're going to do. So I don't know. And don't forget, I would say this about Sovereignty. You know, he certainly, I don't want to say redeemed himself, but by winning the Whitney, that was a major, major coup. Because you can win against 3-year-olds, but when you win against older horses, that's a really big feather in your cap. So I think if his value was wavering a little bit after the Whitney, it went right back up to where it was before, if not higher. So they don't have anything to prove with Sovereignty. If he doesn't win the Breeders' Cup Classic, you know, I mean, he's still going to be a really nice stud as far as what they can ask for stud fee. So I don't know. It's going to be all about the breeding. That's all it will be. Let's see. Mr. Robert Dennison, I have not seen you before, I don't believe. How are you, sir? Good to have you. Let's see what you have to say here. Handicapping is a good guess. Sometimes you're right, and other times you just miss it. There you go. That's right. You know, it's confounding because, you know, you can handicap a race perfectly and still lose. You can also win and be wrong, but you bet it right. You know, I mean, it's what makes it fun, you know, to me. Hi, Robert. RoboCop is here. Congratulations to Tampton. I think Knightsbridge surprised me more than Junior Alvarado did. I had my doubts about Tam Tam. I thought they were placing him kind of gingerly. I had said that in my post. He's a nice horse, you know, nice horse. She won, and like a good thing. She's a good horse. I just wonder about Phil Bauer has not been at Saratoga this year, and that was a big surprise. He's normally very, very present, and he does great, but decided to stay away. I disagree with you, Robert. I don't think Counting Stars is overrated. I think she just regressed a little bit. It was awful hard. I mean, after you win as convincingly as she did in the race prior to the Alabama, which the name escapes me, Coaching Club American Oaks. When you win like that, there's only one place to go more often than not. Aside from Knightsbridge, I mean, he had a paid workout at Monmouth, so you can't say that was that he had a great effort there and then he escalated one further. I don't think so. I think that the Pacific Classic was the big one for him. Counting Stars, I think it was the Coaching Club American Oaks. Um, Addie Girl didn't help her by putting some pressure on her early. I thought she was going to. I thought the race shape was going to be just right for Counting Stars. I just didn't think she was in the top four. I didn't think she would be. That's why I bet against her. That's how I got My Guns Loaded. My Guns Loaded is a gun runner. Later in the year, improving 3-year-old, and had a race that set up just right. So I think you'll see in the distaff, watch out. I mean, Counting Stars is a nice horse. I wouldn't give up on her yet at all. Yeah, Navajo Warrior ran the way I thought he would. I didn't think he'd be up amongst the leaders, and they kept him off the pace. I expected that. But yeah, I thought he'd do a little better. I think he's an example of another horse who's been very carefully placed. If you look at those races he's running, he's beating up on tomato cans. When you go to the Cornhusker and races like that, nothing against them. But they're not top fields. And he was walking through them. So he got, they took a classic, they took a shot. I think they should have. And he's, at this point, he's not a grade 1 horse. That's what I would say. I heard Knightsbridge got an 18-point decrease in speed number for the last race yesterday from his previous. Not sure if the bars. Debbie, I believe he got a 104 for the Pacific Classic. I believe that was the number. So, yes, that's an 18-point decrease. Don't forget, when they assign these numbers, there's a lot that goes into it. And, there's a lot, the variant, there's all kinds of other things. And don't be surprised if they look at it again and come back and reevaluate it. They do it all the time. That's one of the reasons I don't like Beyer speed figures, is that they change them all the time. They'll say, oh, you got a 90. Well, maybe it was better than that. We'll give him a 95. I don't like that. Be resolute. So, hey, he still visually ran a great race. In retrospect, maybe not as good a field as we perhaps thought it might have been. So that's another factor you have to think about there. So probably a 104. I wouldn't give him like a 125 or anything like that, even though it was visually a really nice effort. A lot of things have to do. There's a lot of factors in that. Mrs. Nina says, seeing Full Serrano made me happy. I was amused and thought that his horse, you never know. I would not have played. I wouldn't either, Nina. He's a really nice. I thought he should have won the Pegasus because he was the lone speed. He didn't get to the lead. He had, he won the Pacific Classic. I still don't know how he won that race. It was a terrible field. And, he won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, so he's got quality. I just think his best days are behind him. But, hey, he gave it one last hurrah. And, sometimes those grizzled old veterans, there was a horse years ago named Filmmaker. She was a turf filly. And she was a very classy horse. But throughout the thoroughbred racing season, she would disappoint you. And the older she got, you would think, maybe, she's past her prime. Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, every year she was in the money. It was almost like she knew it was a big stage. Some of those classy horses, they know. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it, but it was nice to see it, let's see. Yes, let's see. What's Prubaka say here? They did adjust the time, Alex. Apparently an outrider caused the bisque. Added just under a half a second, I believe. Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Issue. Okay. They said there was a timing error due to an outright. Okay, there we go. We got validation on that. Okay. Yeah, Debbie was hoping. Debbie was hoping for Almond Joy too, and I didn't think she ran bad. It's just awful tough to win at Del Mar as a closer. Really tough. Jamie's going to be at Keeneland. Okay. Well, all right. Well, we'll coordinate something. We'll get. I believe I have would be Uncle Sully's going to be there, and I believe perhaps Father Sean may be there. I don't know, Sean. You can let us know. Let's see. Rumors were on X that her barn got tossed the other day. Take everything on X with a grain of salt. There's very. I have some people I trust implicitly. When they say something, I believe it. But there's so many people who just are ridiculous. The things they come up with, most of it sour grapes because they lost. First week, okay. I think I might be there for that weekend too, perhaps, Jamie. I'm thinking. I'm not sure yet. I'm just not sure, but I think so. I don't know about stark contrast, Robert. That's a good question. He would have been what 1-5 in the Dunmore Derby. My guess would be they're waiting for Belmont or Keeneland, one or the other with him. Okay, that's right. Our Canadian correspondent says the Canadian Derby went last night at Century Mile. Corey was the winner, came from Ellis Park. Churchill War Will, homebred second. Then another Churchill direct strike. Getsemani. Did I say that right, Sean? I hope I did. Finished sixth. I've never been, yeah. Well, I've watched little snippets of that race, Laura. It looked like a pretty good race. Let's see. Square. What my guess would be, Tyler, is that will be an owner's decision. That will not be Belmont's decision. My guess is if I know Belmont, he's going to put this horse back in an optional claimer or an ungraded stakes or something to see if he can work out the problem. Confidence builder too, and then that will. From there, he'll know what to do with him, whether to go to the Classic or even the Dirt Mile, or I don't know. But I have the feeling CK Racing is, if they say, hey, we want him in the Classic, that's where he's going to go. That's true, Paula. But you know what? Something that was brought up, and I've said this before, and I don't mean to pick on you, but I just want to bring something up because, when that horse I talked about, Chief of Peace, won at 15-1, and everybody thought Ricardo Santana was aboard, and it turned out it was actually Javier Castellano. Everybody on X up in arms. Oh, it would have made a difference. Do you know if I had known it was Javier? Fair enough, but it's the horse. Ricardo Santana had no bearing on my decision to use Chief of Peace whatsoever. I'm going to tell you that right now. It was Miguel Clement, great with first-time starters, and the price was right. And the work tab was good. Everything looked like that horse was going to fire. And he did. Can Irad make a difference on a horse? Yes, he can. But I don't know if he would have made the difference there. I think Counting Stars was due for a regression. I think that's what happened. I haven't given up on that horse at all. She's too good. Let's see. And I agree. Yeah, you're right, Jamie. That I don't think that was the difference. I really don't. I think it was just you caught Counting Stars at the right time. That's what I would say. And it was a mile and a quarter. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know about that, Joe. We know how cagey Bill Mott is. He's not going to send a horse out there unless, Now, I thought it was a test, but I also think maybe Mott knows a little bit more about horses than I do. He knows not Knightsbridge better, and he probably thought, hey, I finally got this horse healthy. He can go 2 turns. It's just a matter of being healthy. So we'll put him in a spot where the field is maybe not a true grade 1 field and see if he can do it. And whether or not he can do it against the top classic distance horses, I don't know yet. The thing about him is, if you look at his past performances, Bill Mott kept him in Florida a long time. And he was beaten up on, cupcake fields in Florida for a long time. And then he finally brought him to a real field and he fell on his ass. But he rebounded. And I think he certainly has quality. Whether or not he's a true grade 1 horse, yet I'm not sure of that. Now, I talked about filmmaker earlier. Hot Rod Charlie was another one. That horse was a big game player. The bigger the stage, the better he liked it. I didn't think he was the greatest horse, but boy, when it was a big race, he always ran big. You had to love that about him. That is a very nice job. Are you talking about the Pacific Classic, I'm guessing, Joe? It's a very nice job. Good for you, Debbie. You just have to, ask them to be a little more generous in the collection plate, right? We kid because we care. Sorry. I know you would never do that, but Breeders' Cup. Okay. So Tyler's going to be at Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. I don't know if I'll be there for the Breeders' Cup. I'm probably going to wait till Belmont, when the new Belmont. I'm going to go for the opening of the new Belmont without a doubt. I will be there. Let's see. Thank you, Mark. You've been here before. I know you have, and I like I said, I hate to call people by their handle. I think it wasn't Counting Stars Day, and she bounced, but still the best 3-year-old filly. Knightsbridge and Proletariat hasn't beaten anything yet. That's right. Proletariat looked pretty good today. I had that exacta in the Del Mar Derby, but. Yeah, I mean, he was never a doubt. It's very hard to evaluate a horse on races like that, where there's no doubt whatsoever. But they got him headed in the right direction. You can't deny that. Counting Stars has been heavily campaigned in at top races for almost a year now. She was due for it. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the way I felt about it. And a mile and an eighth, I think she'd be very dangerous. Now low chance. Okay, thank you, Jamie. Not good. It wasn't good for you. Okay, I try to beat chalk, and look where it got me. That super paid great. Learned something here. Well, you may have heard me say this before, Debbie. And again, not to pick on you, but chalk winning can be your friend as well as your enemy. Now, I'll give you an example. The Del Mar Derby today, Proletariat, I looked at that race and said that I can't beat him. Not even going to try. But what I can do is get a horse with odds underneath and hammer an exact, and that's exactly what I did with Bust Out. So there are times where, and I'm with you, Debbie. I try to beat the favorite every single time. But sometimes you have a race where you go, I just can't beat them. Now, in my case, when I see a horse who's 1-5, and I think I can beat him, I'll try. More often than not, you're going to be right. But there are times where you just look at a field and go, first superfecta I ever hit, Sun King. You guys have heard me talk about him. I think he was running at Tampa. And there was nothing behind him in the field. And he was 1-9. Now, that was back when I was kind of a greenhorn. So I bet the superfecta because I was like, this horse is not going to lose. There's just no way he's going to lose. And I staggered it. So I had my second, third, and fourth, and I worked my magic. I didn't just wheel it, and I hit it. And, it was it's kind of one of those things where you just have to say, hey, I can't win. So let me see if I can make chicken out of chicken shit, and I've had, if you can find, what's wrong with an ice cold exacta with a 1-5, a 3-5 horse on the front end and 30-1 underneath? It'll pay. It'll pay. And I've had many of those ice cold exactas where, you're thinking, oh, this isn't going to pay anything. Well, if you spend a $10 cold exacta and you get 30-1 underneath, it's going to pay. Believe me. Need to learn to make small saver bets. It will cost me next to nothing. But when I do my posts, I try to put saver bets in there. You certainly don't want to go crazy because, as I've said many times, I know we all want to win, but you want to get paid too. That's more important to me. But did I pick Knightsbridge to win? No. Did I have a save run? Yes. I had a saver exacta, and I probably I think I put Original Sin and a couple other decent odds horses underneath, made it like a $5-10 exacta for 15, $30, whatever it was, and it saves you and you get a little bit back. You don't, your prime bets you lose out on, but Debbie, I really like the way you handicap. You put so much into it. Impressive. I put 2 on Almond Joy. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, have an opinion. Don't be afraid. Go for it. Nothing wrong with it. Hey, and if you're right, you get paid. And there you go. There's a nice cold exacta from Father Sean. Guns loaded over measure for $10 cold. $265. What's wrong with that? Excellent bet. I mean, that race just screamed my guns loaded to me, and I couldn't see anybody else who could really mount any type of possibility to win that race aside from my guns loaded. And Measure was an excellent pick to go underneath. I thought he was more of a candidate for third, but hey, you see what happens when you do that. That's a nice saver, cost him $10. Look what he got paid. Okay. Are we ready to take a look at the Travers? We're all caught up on questions. Everybody ready? Now, let me ask, does everybody have the Brisnet past performances? I'm going to put them on the screen, so don't worry about that. But, it's in terms of like following along. There we go. Okay, you got the form. Okay. We're going to use Brisnet because that's what I use, Debbie, but I think I would hope it will help you. Can everybody see that? All right, I'm going to add it to the stage. There we go. And let's see. See if I can make it a little better. Okay. Let's see if I can get it a little bigger. Okay. So here's the Travers. So we're going to go through it one horse at a time, just like we did for the Pacific Classic. And I'll try to stop a little bit to give questions, to take a look if you have questions, okay? So here we go. So the first thing, of course, that we all know, it's the Travers grade 1, mile and a quarter, 3-year-olds, right? Speed par is 102, right? So we want to look for horses who can run somewhere near 102, right? That's our gauge. That's our par. So the first horse we're going to look at is Emerging Market, okay? Now, no IRAD. So we get Ricky Santana because IRAD's not coming back until I believe it's Kentucky Downs. So now we know this horse, right? So you take a look here, and you know, I will say this right off the bat. You know, all these little angles, these things right here. When it's somebody like Chad Brown, I don't even bother with him. We know the horse is going to be ready for this race, right? I mean, it's very the only time it becomes with a big time trainer, these angles become really important is when you see that the percentage is really low. Like Todd Pletcher, first time on the turf, is like 7%, I think it is. So other than that, if it's Bob Baffert, it's a grade 1 stakes race. I'm going to presume the horse is well met. I think that's pretty straightforward. Now, Claravit Stables, that's Chad Brown's number 1 client. So the big issue to me right off the bat here, when I'm looking at the connections, is Ricardo Santana. Nothing against him. He's a decent enough jockey, but look, with Roots, he's only 13%. So now I'm like, okay, you know, obviously Flavian Pratt will be elsewhere in this field, I'll assume. But that's a big red flag too. No IRAD, no Flavian Pratt. So that's my first red flag with Emerging Market. Now, it's a mile and a quarter. We know he's run at it a couple of times, right? The Louisiana Derby, the Kentucky Derby, and the Belmont. And after that Louisiana Derby, you know, the results have been kind of disappointing, I guess you could say. But before we do that, we got to look at the work tab. Now, since he ran on July 25th, and I bet against him all day long in that race, and I was right with Winstock, he's had 1, 2, 3 works on the 8th, the 15th, and the 22nd. So he hasn't missed a beat. 7 days, clicking right off. 3 furlong or 3 works at 48. Well, we know Chad Brown, you're not going to learn a lot from the work tab, but we do know at the very least that he seems to be running okay. We also know that Chad Brown can get a horse right after a mediocre start. Now, I won't say the last race was a mediocre one, but it is noteworthy that he was running against older horses. And when I talked about this race, that was the thing that bothered me. I say the 3-year-olds haven't been great this year. Now you're putting them in against older horses. Well, so from this race, I would say, well, he did run second, but he chased 5, 3 wide. He was wide throughout the track, lost a lot of ground. The pace was 49, 112, kind of slow. So to me, it's I don't know if it told us a whole lot. Now, he was coming off a layoff, and it was a prep for the Travers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what I would say is, why didn't he run in the Jim Dandy? That would always kind of bother me because that's against 3-year-olds only, right? And you see that he was a short price. He was really short in this race. And he had Lasix. And so I have my reservations about emerging market for a lot of reasons. And, that was I was like, I bet against him that race, and I just didn't think thought he ran an okay second. But if he was really the bee's knees, wouldn't you think he would have won that race? I got my doubts about him, big time. Emerging market, Mr. Hill says emerging market is a phony. I'm not ready to say that yet, Mr. Hill, but I'm kind of with you in that I'm not really keen on him. I think he's had a lot of chances to take a step forward and it hasn't happened. Not to say that later on, now that he's had a little time, but to me, if I look at him without looking at the rest of the field, I'm not sure that leap forward is there. Because also note, Louisiana Derby, he got a 120 class rating on a 116 race rating. Right down here. Kentucky Derby, 118, 118. Remember what I said about that? Belmont, 118, 117. Had a bad start. Wide around both turns. So he's been wide. You throw the Derby up, but he's been wide in his last two races. So to me, when I start seeing things like that, I'm like, if they're, you could say they're excuses per se, but great horses overcome things like that. So preliminarily, I like the price, 15-1, but I have my doubts about emerging market. No, Debbie, the rail has not been bad. In fact, horses from 1 to 3, the 1 to 3 posts have been winning quite a bit. They had some rain today, so the rail was bad because, obviously when the water seeps in from the infield, the rail becomes a bog. But generally, the rail hasn't been that bad. I don't think it's going to make a difference for emerging market only in one respect. If he's not going to be up amongst the leaders, he can save ground. But don't forget, now he's going to have to work out a trip. He's going to have no choice. So he's either going to have to go or he's going to have to work out a trip and pick his way through traffic. And if we already have a little bit of doubt about him, that's the way I feel about him. All right, so let's take a look at leading change. Now, this is a new shooter. And immediately what I see, Wathman Racing. And what do we know about those guys? Aggressive, right? They bought a lot of horses. Last year, or 2 years ago, I think it was, they bought Hit Show. They've been very aggressive. So this is the type of spot that they relish, they want to be in. And I see Manny Franco's aboard, who's been riding very well at Saratoga, so that's a plus. And I see when Brad Cox uses them, they win at 33%. But I also note the ROI isn't very good. So it's usually when he's got the chalk. And this is another example. Brad Cox, I don't have to look at these percentages. I know this horse is going to be ready. He's coming off the bench. He'll be ready to run. I see he's by Gun Runner, and he's got Congrats underneath. Now, as we saw, I pointed this out before. One thing that you got to look at right away is the damn sire average winning distance is 6.8, which isn't bad, but and Gun Runner will get him a mile and a quarter more than likely. But you want to see that when you get into these type of distances, it becomes important. And so Commandment had a low average winning distance. Cheap Wallaby did. And remember, we had concerns about them at distance. So it's a little thing to think about. But you also note that look at the dam. She's had 100% 2-year-old winners, 7 starters, 7 winners, 2 stakes winners. All her get 1 at 2. That's impressive. So we know there's some class here, right? So that's a good thing. So now we look at the work tab. And we see that generally, pretty steadily, this horse has been working consistently, hasn't missed a beat. And now since the July 11th effort in the Indiana Derby, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 works. That's good. And I see 3 5-furlong bottom building works, all in good times. So I'm not worried about that. This horse is ready to roll. Here's what I'm worried about. And I think those of you know my feelings about Indiana, not the state, Hoosier, the Indiana Grand. That's a nothing race. 116 race rating. He got a 119 class rating. It was an improvement off the maiden win. But what I would have liked to have seen is like a 120 or 121 race rating. So I don't know how good a field that really was, to be quite honest. Leading Change is not normally a horse I would bet in a stakes race, a graded stakes race coming out of a maiden, except when the field isn't so great. And also that Irad was aboard and he will not be. I'm not worried too much about that because Brad Cox has done pretty well with Manny Franco, so that doesn't bother me. So my concern is class, but I also know this 3-year-old crop isn't the greatest, so I'll presume Leading Change can probably run with this group. And, probably can get a mile and a quarter because then it's not – if this was a really sterling group of 3-year-olds and he was stepping in, I might have some concern. But we know what they are at this point, right? So Leading Change is one I would consider right off the bat. Now we gotta look at the whole field, but he's maybe one we want to think about. Okay, Tyler loves Leading Change. He has setback. Okay, the seventh race, 108 and change. 7 furlong race. Is that for? I'm guessing that's. Let's take a look at Leading Change. Yeah. Okay. That's smoking. You're right, Debbie. And he did win it handily. So there's definitely some talent. I'm not saying there isn't talent here. I'm just saying that this is a big. I mean, even for this crop. Let's qualify it. If this was a better group of 3-year-olds like last year, and he was going against Sovereignty, Journalism, and Baeza, I wouldn't give him much of a chance. But in this group, I would give him a chance. So he's one I'm thinking about. So he's one we're thinking about as a new shooter in particular in this group. So now we look at Napoleon Solo. And first thing right off the bat, and Chad Summers is 0 for 27 at Saratoga. And 1 second and 2/3. Not good. But look who he's got in the irons. Could you ask for a better jockey for a horse who's likely going to be on the front end than Johnny V? I would say no. We also know he's 1-for-1 at Saratoga, which is good. And we know this is a track that you really want to see horses who have won at Saratoga. So those are two good things. We know he's by Liam's map and Scat Daddy underneath. That's a little troubling, but Atomic Blonde was a pretty good horse, and you can see as a dam, 2-for-2. Napoleon Solo is obviously the star of the field. So, but what's our issue with Napoleon Solo? 1.25 miles, right? I'm not sure. So I look and I see since the Haskell, where I thought he ran very well. I'll say that. You see, now if you look at his work tab prior to the Haskell, 18th, 25th, July 9th, he had that gap. I think he had something with his hoof or something. I remember he had a gap in the training. That's what kind of turned me off of him a little bit. But he was able to rebound and run pretty well. So since the Haskell, they gave him some time off, and he's had 3 works. And very similar to the kind of works he had prior to the Haskell. See a 48 maintenance, then a bullet, 58-4, 5 furlongs, and then 47-3 on the 20th. So I know he's sharp. And I also know that he's proven himself to be competitive. The question is, has he ever really run against the best 3-year-olds? And I would say no. But I do know this. One thing I really like is from the Preakness to the Haskell, he had a significant layoff. And look, he ran his career high Brisnet number off the bench. Now, it was in the slop, so it was a little aided by that perhaps. But he ran his career best. And he's got the perfect jockey to slow the pace down like he did in the Haskell, get him nice and relaxed. So second off the layoff, which, as we can see, for Chad Summers is a very good angle. He's at 23%. So there's some things to like about Napoleon Solo. What I'm very concerned about, though, is the distance. I'm just not sure this horse can take them all the way in 1.25 miles. Yeah, Prabhakar, yeah. I think that if I had to say what my biggest issue is, that's it. It's the 2 turns. But I'm withholding judgment right now. I can't toss him completely at this point. Not completely, but leaning that way just because I don't think he wants 1.25 miles. Okay, so now let's take a look at the Puma. All right. Now, right off the bat, I know about this horse. I had some major concerns about this horse with distance based upon what I saw in the Tampa Derby when he won the race, but they seemed to be getting to him in the stretch. And then the Florida Derby, he had the lead, and they were getting to him in the stretch. And they got to him. Commandment got to him. Who's another horse. Even after that Belmont, I don't think he's necessarily a 1.25 mile horse. But we did see what we always like to see with 3-year-olds, a nice progression from the maiden to the Sam F. Davis to the Tampa Derby to the Florida. But the Florida Derby, he got 119. And I don't think they reserved anything for that race. I think he was all out to win that race. So remember what I said about, that plateau that maybe can happen? Well, look at the Haskell. Now, he needed a race. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And it wasn't the slop. But, he still ended up 4th. Bobbled at the break. Okay. and he paired his career high. And he is by, one thing that we can say is regardless of what my reservations might be, had been about distance, look at his pedigree. 8.2 furlongs average winning distance for the dam sire, and 7.6 for essential quality. And we know essential qualities have been getting better as it gets longer. So I couple that with the fact that he came off the bench, had an excuse, maybe needed a race. It was in the slop, and he bobbled at the break. He had a lot of excuses, and he still finished fourth. And now he's got Javier Castellano aboard, who we know what he can do for Gustavo Delgado. That was the connections for Mage. So I look at this, and I'm gonna say that maybe because of his pedigree is so classic distance, I gotta believe that maybe I've been wrong, and maybe a mile and a quarter he might be able to get. And if he can, the way he's run in the past, he could be really dangerous here. So this is a horse I'm going to use. And at 8-1, that's a terrific price. I think I can comfortably use him in the mix. Puma, and that's what Debbie says, Puma is the only horse here with 2 100 speed numbers last 2 races. Not that I'm convinced, just pointing out. That's very fair. And listen, a great angle, particularly amongst 2-year-olds, when they move to 3, is when they pair or surpass their career high number at 2, their first race out at 3. But you can use that for younger horses when they've had a layoff. And if you consider he ran a 100, paired his career high, and had excuses, there's a case to be made for the Puma. That's what I would say. So that's why I think I'm going to use him. And I looked at his tab, and he looks like he's working just fine. He's had 3 works, and like to see that bottom building 6 furlong work. Don't worry about the time. That's could be a lot of things. All right, so let's take a look at Renegade. We know what this horse can do. But we also note, we have to, that after all his great runs and everything else, no IRAD. But I'll tell you what, one of the things about Tyler Gaffalione, I've been noticing more and more this year that when he's got later runners, he's pretty effective. He does well when he can come off the pace. So I think he's okay. Now, you see, he's only 14% with Roots, but for this, it's kind of like Joel Rosario, gets a lot of heat, and he should. But if he's on a horse who goes to the lead, or if he's on a horse who comes from the clouds, he's just as good as anybody. It's when he has to rate that's maybe not as good. So I'm not worried about Tyler Gaffalione in this spot. That doesn't bother me. And I think it's also noteworthy when we get to Oselli, you'll note Tyler Gaffalione hopped off him to go to Renegade. And that's not a big surprise, I don't think, to anybody. And it's Todd Pletcher, and we know his barn was cold as ice to start the meet, but he's been heating up. So no concerns there. And I also know Renegade is 3 for 3 in the money at Saratoga. So I know that's not an issue. And I know he's run at the distance twice, and he's got a second and a third. We know what those races were. So now we'll look at the work tab. And he hasn't run since the Jim Dandy. And Prior to that, they gave him a little bit of time off, but he had a pretty steady tab. He had 4 works prior to the Jim Dandy. And since then, at 5, I'm sorry, he's had a couple, 50 and 48 maintenance works. So he's in good form. I think we're pretty confident he's going to get the distance after that Kentucky Derby. What I really like right now is look at that. What did I was just talking about? He just ran his career best Brisnet number off the bench in the Jim Dandy. I like that. It's a 5-horse field. True. Are those great determinants? Closers can do really well in those races because there's no traffic. There's nothing to worry about. But we know this horse fires every time. The only issue had been speed, right? And he just cracked a 102. And, so I would say that's extremely encouraging. Now, we're not overly certain about the race shape yet, but I would have to say that's pretty good. So to me, well, I'm just catching up. You might be right there, Joe. It's an issue. There's certainly an issue that you think he could finish a little better. That's what gave me the reservations about the distance, to be honest. Even though his pedigree screams it, sometimes they don't. They can't get it. I don't know. So that's a good point. But anyway, back to Renegade. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be a prime win candidate in this spot. He's ultra consistent. He likes the track. He's second off the layoff. Doesn't get IRAD, but he's got a jockey who knows how to deal with horses running late. So to me, I think Renegade is a prime win candidate. He's a definite use. To me, he would be. I see no reason not to use it. So now let's go to our favorite maiden. Oh, Sally. Okay, now first thing I note is no Tyler Gaffleone. Right? That's not a good sign, obviously. He's been on him for 4 straight starts, and now he's gone. I see Whit Beckman, who, is doing okay, but not great, not bad at Saratoga. And I see Edgar Zayas as the jockey. Now, you see with S-types, Edgar Zayas is 13%, 44% in the money. So not his wheelhouse. And you see with Roots, he's only 10%, 39% in the money. So this was kind of an any port in the storm selection, I would say. Not the greatest jockey for this type of scenario. So I would say that's bad. That's something I don't like. And we know he's 0 for 2 at the distance with a third. We all, we know all about that. And we look at the pedigree and he can get a 1.25 miles. I think we all know that. So we look at since the Haskell, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4 works, all 4 furlongs, just pure maintenance. So nothing outstanding from the work tab. So looking at his, this is a horse, because he's a maiden, what I'm interested in is we're going to go from the bottom up with this one, because this is certainly kind of a wild card horse in a sense. And so just to demonstrate, we'll start from the bottom of this first race. And you see he ran an above average maiden, 115 to a 112, which is a pretty good maiden race, and he gets third. Steps low. So they stretch him out to a route, runs another 115 at a 111. Not quite as good a race, and he finishes second. Advanced 6 wide, rallied. So he's getting it, right? Third start at Fairgrounds, maiden, another 115 and a 112. So this, now you're seeing a pattern here of a horse who's kind of running the same race every time. And you see he runs against Reagan's Honor. We know what happened with him, sadly. Loomed 5 wide, drifted, weakened. So you've seen basically the same race 3 straight times. He goes to the Sam F. Davis, and we remember that race. He made that big move right before the turn, only to flatten out. And it was a 116, the highest class rating race rating he'd ever gone against, and he ran another 115. So he ran his race, but as the class got better, he didn't respond. So now he goes to Colonial, the Virginia Derby, not quite as good a race rating, 115. He runs a 116, little better. But you see, he ran the same race that he's always been running. He makes that move around the top of the turn. You think he's guns loaded, he's ready to roll, and then he just flattens right out again. Wood Memorial, 116. Now here we start to see some progress. He's getting maturing. See, 116, as was the Sam F. Davis, but he runs a 118. So now he's maybe getting it. And we look at the running line. We comes from the clouds, closed, bumped at the start, 3 to 5 path turns, 6 path quarter. So he ran a third in a race that didn't have a whole lot of pace, or did actually, Napoleon Solo, and he had everything his way, and he still only finished third. So we go to the Derby. And again, he had the scenario that was perfect for him. He came from the clouds. You see that 69, 90, 93 pace line. That's that E1, E2 LP. That's what a line looks like for a closer. And we all know what he did, right? He made the big move, and he flattened out again. So we're thinking the Preakness, can he take another step forward? So he's running, at this point, he ran a 118 race rating, he got a 121 class rating. So this is a horse who's definitely headed in the right direction after the Derby. But he goes to the Preakness, softer field, 116 race rating. He runs a 117, really no factor in the race at all. Bobbled, bumped at the start, willingly. We always like to see willingly as a note. I always love to see that. Horses usually run very, very well the next time when you see that. But I also know that track was very speed favoring that day. Closers really didn't have a chance. So he's got a bit of an excuse there. So now I want to go to the Ohio Derby. Softer field than the Preakness, 115 race rating. And what does he do? He runs a 119. And he's leading in the stretch, but he can't finish the deal. So now if I look at, and this is a lot of, I'm just doing this for formality's sake, but a lot of this is old hat for you guys. I understand that. But now I look and I see a horse who just doesn't know how to win. That's my conclusion going into the Haskell. This horse just doesn't get it. He's had every chance, the Ohio Derby, the Kentucky Derby, and he didn't get it done. You could even say the Sam F. Davis. I remember that race. He made a big move. He looked like he was going to close, and he didn't. So we get to the Haskell. Now, what's noteworthy here? It's a 118 race rating. So that's a commensurate field with the Kentucky Derby. That's the toughest race he's ever run in, and it was in the mud. And what happened? Nowhere. He did nothing. He didn't run a step in that race. 2 to 3 wide, gave way. Now, what I would say at this point, if you note, he hasn't had a break since November of last year. He's run every month since November. This horse needs a break. I'm not going to take him in the Travers. He's a toss. So that's our first toss. I'm outright throwing out Ocelli. Debbie, you could say that. That's fair. That's fair, Debbie. But also note, like I just said, this horse hasn't had a break since November. I think he just needs some time off. I put him in an allowance race, and this is all his connections who just wanna. They're loving the ride. All these big stakes races, Saratoga, all of that. This horse needs some time off. I don't think there's any doubt about that. To me. Want to say hi to David. Let's just look. Napoleon So looks like the pick here. C Strike might be another worth taking a shot. This seems like a great betting race. Let's get through the whole field, David. But that's. Oh, and by the way, thank you very much for. David was kind enough to send me some of his art, which is pretty keen. And if you want to put in the comments where they can take a look at your stuff, David, please do. Really nice stuff. I think you'd find it worth your while if you're, especially Nina, who's got that room, which is pretty cool. Your horse memorabilia room I saw on X. It's pretty neat. A lot of cool stuff there. Okay, so now I'm getting rid of. So Ocelli's a toss for me. And plus, the other thing is we got a lot of closers in this race, and I don't like to see a lot of closers because of the potential traffic issues. So C Strike is certainly a horse who's on a lot of people's mind right now after the Curlin. And we see Flavian Pratt, who now here's a more interesting thing. Got off Emerging Market to get on C Strike. That's an interesting move there. That's obviously Chad Brown saying, I think C Strike's a better shot here. I think we'd all agree on that. This is, at the outset, this is a horse who's coming in off a win, pretty impressive one, seemingly. And you get Flavian Pratt aboard for Chad Brown, who obviously would like to win the Travers. So we look at the work tab, and we see this horse has been working pretty steadily. And since the Curlin, 2 works, and a pretty good one here. Now, for a Chad Brown horse to run 3 out of 66 is pretty good. You don't see that too often. Chad Browns are 48, 49. They very rarely run a work like that, so that's noteworthy. So we know that C Strike is probably going to be in pretty good shape. Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about right off the bat is look at his pedigree. And I will say this turned me off when I looked at the Curlin. Midshipman by Line of David mare. Line of David ran in the Derby a few years ago without a lot of success. But look at the average winning distances. 6.5, 6.5. Now, we said earlier that we had some questions about the Puma, even though he's got classic distance pedigree. So, C Strike, I got some major questions about this pedigree, and stepping up to 1.25 miles, it's a concern for me. But I know he's in decent shape. He's coming off a win, albeit a restricted stakes race that came up with a 115 race rating. Not very good. But before we get to that, we see he ran his maiden at 6 furlongs at Aqueduct, and he got a 116 and a 112 maiden race. That's pretty good. But I want to see more before I'm sold. And you see he rated off the pace, and the horse, what the hell is it? Tiva at Zanzibar. That horse won at Saratoga next out. So step slow, shy in, taken up, green, right? But won the maiden. That's impressive. Stretches out to 6.5 furlongs in an N1X allowance, 114 race rating, so better class of race, but runs a 115. Red flag. First against winners and older. That's what this, you guys know, that's what this 3 up means. So when faced with older horses, this horse did not respond. And it was a key race too, because you see Butter and Local Knowledge have both come back to win at Saratoga. And Butter, I believe, won a stakes race. So that was a good race. So we can give them a little bit of an excuse there. Hey, first time against older, first time against winners, little green. And we see back against his own kind in the Curlin, he wins for fun. Not a lot of pace in that race, as you recall. Gulfy was like the only other horse to go to the lead, as I recall. Floated 4 wide first, went clear. Not necessarily a horse, type of race you can really judge this horse by, I would say. It was a mediocre field. The race rating was lower than that of the Louisiana Derby. So not the greatest of fields. And we know Chief Wallaby's got a lot of problems knowing how to win, right? So he did what a good horse is supposed to do, and he got a 122 class race. So that's a positive. But he's also now going into a race where he's got to deal with Napoleon Solo on the front end, who we know what he wants to do, and we know he's lickety-split. So a markedly different type of scenario than he had last time, and a really big test. And I mean, I've seen Chad Brown do this before with Unmatched Wisdom. Some of you might remember from a couple of years ago. You know, it was pretty impressive. And then they put him in the Travers and crash. Every year is different. I'm pretty reticent to use this horse for a number of reasons. I mean, the pedigree is always going to bother me. And I know it's Flavien Prat, and he got off Emerging Market to run on this horse, to ride this horse. But I think this is a very, very ambitious placement for this horse. And I'm kind of going either way, but I probably would let go. Yeah, Mr. Hill, we're talking about that as we go. You can't underestimate. I'll say this: Flanagan Racing. I mean, they're a pretty good client of Chad Brown's, but I don't know that they've ever had a horse that I can recall that has the chance to do what they're hoping Sea Strike can do. So this may be a little ambitious. He didn't run Sea Strike in the Jim Dandy. He put him in a much softer spot in the Curlin. That kind of, and at 5-1, that's awful short. So if we talk about owner intent, it could be. This could be an owner's decision. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. I think this horse is very borderline. And let me see what father. I tend to agree with you, Sean. Yeah, I tend to agree with both of you. So he's very borderline. In fact, would probably be a toss for me, for the reasons stated. So now we'll get to Baby Vino. Okay, Now we've got a horse I think is extremely interesting. Now I have not looked at these PPs. I'm looking at this with you guys. And I note a couple of things. First of all, look who the jockey is. Right? Paco, who, a lot of us do not like, but make of note, look who Paco was riding before. And he's not now. I think that's significant. That could be a contractual thing. I don't know what it is, but hey, this is Travers, right? So, to me, that may speak volumes. And Paco is, he hasn't run a lot at Saratoga, but he's at 30%. And we know that he's really good at roots, 28%, 63% in the money. And with P types, he's 24%, 58%. So that's the right jockey. Lindsay Schultz having, not the greatest meet at Saratoga, but she only had 10 starts. So now the pedigree, Vina Rosso by Discreetly Mine. Again, another pedigree that you can go either way with, right? Because the average winning distance, 6.6 furlongs. Not good. And again, that has been the big advantage, the biggest advantage Golden Tempo has had throughout this whole 3-year-old campaign is that he's a true 1.25 mile horse. The rest of them are borderline. So that's a little bit of a concern. I think we'd all agree with Baby Vino. That's the way I feel about him, right off the bat. It's a little bit of a concern. But now since the Haskell, and I look, he's been working pretty steadily. And I just look at his tab. Everything looks fine. Now, since the Haskell, he's had 3 works and a couple of bottom builders at 5 furlongs. Looks good. No issue. So let's look at his running lines because we don't know Baby Vino real well, but let's take a look at him. You see, he started at Oaklawn, and he ran in a mediocre maiden race because he got a 109 race rating, but he ran a 113. So above average, shows a little bit of potential. And he had to lead the whole race until he faded late. 54-yarder, I had in a race at nice odds. That's a pretty good horse. So, okay. They give him some time off, so he debuts at 3, and he runs in a little bit better maiden race, and he just doesn't run very well at all. And you can see by the running lines. Remember I talked about this. When you see a horse who's really keen early and fades late off the bench, a lot of times you bet him back and you get something. Well, he didn't run very well that day. Probably needed a race. We'll draw a line to that one. So now they stretch him out to 1 mile and 16th, which is pretty ambitious in a better maiden race at 111. Runs another 113 and he gets 3rd to Getsamani. And it was a pretty good race. And you see 4-path inside clipped heel, so he had a little bit of an excuse. Keep him in the maiden ranks, obviously. Now he's at 1 mile and 1/8 and a 110 race rating, about the same, but not quite as good. He runs another 113 and he gets 2nd. And you see bid, 4-path, 5/16, caught 2-path, 1/8. Okay. Not really making progress at this point. The speed numbers are getting better, but his class rating isn't. That's a little bit of a concern. And what it would tell you, based upon the body of his work so far, this is a horse who obviously was getting better as he's getting older. That's important. And we know Vino Rosso was like that because he was a pretty good 3-year-old, but he really didn't come to his own until he won the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think he was 4. But he definitely was later in his career. So we know that about his sire. So that explains some things. And they obviously thought, the next day, so they put him in another maiden, and this time it's another 111. He runs a 115. So he finally breaks the maiden with an improved class rating. But the one thing that's a little trouble, I look at those pace lines and you see from one race to the next, well, he ran a little better. So actually, it does show improvement. So we like that. Now, obviously, they thought a lot of this horse because they immediately move him into the Pegasus, an ungraded stakes as soon as he breaks his maiden, and he didn't disappoint. Now, that's important because it's a 115 race rating, highest level of race he'd ever run at, and he runs a 120. And we all remember that race. He just blew that field away. Was it a great field? No. As far as stakes level goes, it was not very good at all. And significant in that you look at Sea Strike, he ran a 115. It was a race rated 115 in the Curlin. So the Pegasus and the Curlin were rated the same. That's important. And you see, but the good thing is, Baby Vino did what a good horse is supposed to do. He dusted that field with Paco in the irons and blew them away. So now he goes to the Haskell, and we did have some suspicions that he was going to run pretty well in this race. And I'm still, frankly, kicking myself. I didn't bet him. And we talked about it because you had a couple of horses who were short prices there. I believe there were 3 of them, and it was primed for the long shot, and that's history, right? But what's important to note is the Haskell was rated a 118. He ran a 121, another step forward. Now, it was in the slop. That's true. But look, he gets his career high Brisnet number for the 4th consecutive race, 5th consecutive race. That's significant. And he ran big for the 2nd consecutive race. So this is a horse who's clearly on the upswing. He's had a little time to freshen up, a little bit more than a month, so that's good. We've got a jockey who's really good at this type of runner. All systems go. At 10-1, you've got to love Baby Vino in this spot, and I do. This is a horse you absolutely have to use. I don't think anybody say to the contrary? Right, Sean. April Fool, very important. Now, let's see what Mr. Hill says. The problem with him and the one before is I think they'll show speed and we don't know. Fair. But, here's something you got to think about, Mr. Hill, and all of you. And this is a reason that it's going to be a little difficult in some respects to toss some of these horses. If they all, are not true classic horses, it doesn't matter. The problem is we've got a couple who are in this race, right? So that's a little bit, you're correct in assuming it's a little bit of a concern. But what I like is this horse is moving upwards. He's progressing. I'm not so sure we can say that about a lot of horses in here. I think there's still emerging market. I'm not sure he's moving forward. The Puma, I think, looks like he's ready to take a step. And that's what you want, right? Horses who are moving forward. I think Baby Vino, I at 10-1, I can't discard a horse like this. He's a definite use for me. All right, so now let's take a look at Golden Tempo. Down in distance, right? We know that right off the bat. This horse has won twice at 1.25 miles. He's bred for 1.25 miles. And he's got Jose aboard. Now, the only thing I'll say, Cherie DeVoe, not having the greatest of Saratogas, but Also note he's wearing the Phipps silks. They would like nothing more than to win the Travers. Little thing there, but he's won at Saratoga, he won the Belmont there, and he's 3 out of 3 in the money with 2 wins and a third at the distance. And the third was in the Louisiana Derby, which wasn't even a mile and a quarter, right? Look at the work tab. That's really going to be, we know who this horse is at this point, right? And we look and we see they gave him a fair amount of time off after the Belmont. They gave him a month off. He didn't do anything. And we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 works, including a bullet right before his last workout for this race. And that's, you remember Riders Up Tim, who we had on here as a guest. That's something he really likes to see, and I do too. Because that's the penultimate work is usually for a lot of trainers. That's where the real, you're going to see what they got. And then the next one is just sort of to keep them in that mode. So we look at the running lines, and we know this horse, what he did in his maiden race, and then the Lecomte and the Rizastar. And he had some progression, but we wondered a little bit if that was as far as he could go in the Louisiana Derby, but that turned out to be a better race than perhaps I thought it was. And you get that note willing. So he gets in the Derby. We know what he did. And the Belmont. He's in this race. He's one of maybe 2 true mile and a quarter horses. The question is, and if you see a work like that, that bullet there, which he hadn't run before, he may be improving where he doesn't necessarily have to have pace to run to. And we know in the Belmont, he really didn't have it, but it didn't matter. So it's a big bargaining chip with him is the fact that he's just so bred for a mile and a quarter to me. So kind of hard not to use him. And, at the outset, he's certainly a prime win candidate because we know what he can do at the distance, and we know he's in pretty good shape. The only question I would have is I don't know how he'll run off the bench because he's never done it before. But that's a minor concern, I would say. You're impossible to please, Mr. Hill. I'm just kidding. I understand. Fairway, 5-4. Stewart, right? Stewart says Golden Tempo is the single in the pick 5. Perhaps. He did have a fever, I believe. Yeah, but he's had plenty of time to recover. Okay. So, I think we're all pretty much in agreement. Golden Tempo is a must use. Whether you put him on top or not, I don't know. But so now we'll take a look at Silent Tactic. Now, this is another X Factor horse, I would say. And trained by Mark Cassie. And you note that Luis Saez keeps them out. He has not been riding the greatest at Saratoga. You can see he's at 11%. He's been okay, not great. Now we look at this. Now let's reacquaint ourselves with Silent Tactic. You see he's by Tacitus and Gunrunner underneath. And you see the average winning distance is 7.1, 7.5. I think he's going to be okay at a mile and a quarter. What was always been the question with this horse? He was a cut below, right? And I look at his now there were a couple of things that now that I refamiliarize myself, coming off that long layoff from the Arkansas Derby, I did have some concerns about his work tab because he had a couple stops and starts. You see that April 23rd to May 8th, there's a big gap there. And then May 8th to May 30th, there's another gap. So they had some issues, and we heard about quarter cracks and whatnot. And then again from the 6th to the 20th. But after that, 27th, 5th, 12th, 19th. So we had, and then some time off, which I don't like that much time before a race. But you see, he came off the bench and he ran pretty well. You know, he basically went second all the way around the track and kind of gave it up late. Commandment got by him. But when you consider that he was coming off a long layoff and he got his career high Brisnet number again, very important. And what I like is, more than anything, is look at the race rating. The race rating was 117. That's the highest he'd ever run. And he got a 118 for a horse who likely needed the race, I would say. So for me, second off the layoff with a horse who's probably going to be okay at a mile and a quarter, who's going to have a running style where he's just off the leaders. If he's got enough in the tank left and can take a move forward, Sound Tactic's another one I think you got to use, especially at 10-1. That's the field. So what do we think? Now let's talk about the race shape. So, Mr. Hill, you think emerging market and silent tactic are kind of like the same, if I'm guessing right. Renegading Golden Temple for the exacta, Robert says. I think you could do a lot worse. So if I'm looking at this race, now I want to go back and kind of get a feel for the race shape. And I know C Strike probably going to be up amongst the leaders because he seems to be most comfortable running that way. And I know Napoleon Solo is going to be either right on the lead or just off of it. I'm going to say, because Johnny Velasquez is the jockey, they have every intent to put this horse on the engine, on the muscle. I think that's the way they're going to try to win this race. But now that we've gone through the whole field, I'll talk emerging market. This race bothers me because I just think he should have run better than that. I just think they probably got to wait with this horse till he's 4. I don't know. I don't see enough there. I'm going to let him go. Even though the price is decent, I just don't see it. I'm going to let him go. Leading Change, I'm going to also let go because he was all out to win the Indiana Derby, which wasn't the greatest of races. And I know he's fresh and all that, but this is a big step up from a weak grade 3 to a grade 1. I'm going to let him go too. Napoleon Solo is very interesting in the fact that there's no speed per se. But did that bother Golden Tempo before? No. And it didn't bother Renegade in the last one either. And what I'm thinking is, even though it was in the mud, look at the Wood Memorial and look at the Haskell. At a mile and an eighth, where there wasn't a speed favoring track that the Preakness was that day. And look what happened both times. Gave it up. Yeah. Gave it up. Gave it up. It wasn't as pronounced in the Haskell because the pace was slower. But that is noteworthy in that those were, they were mile and an eighth without a speed bias, without speed favoring, and he was giving it up. The Preakness, he had the track all his way. And, you also have to note, look at the time of the Preakness, 1:58.3 is extremely slow by Preakness standards. I'm letting Napoleon Solo go for that reason. I don't think he's going to get the mile and a quarter. He's plenty fast enough, Mr. Hill. The issue to me is he fast enough at a mile and a quarter? I don't think he is. And I'd also point something out here. If you take a look at Napoleon Solo, that 104 is much faster than what he had run before. And it is good to see that off a layoff, but it also, when you move up that quickly, there might be some regression there. I don't know that necessarily we can expect that. I think it's more the distance to me. I think he's going to get the trip, but I think there's a lot of firepower behind him. I think it's going to be a very tall order for Napoleon Solo to win this race, in my opinion. And Stuart, you're right. I mean, I love Johnny V. I do. And he's the perfect jockey for this horse. We saw what he did with National Treasure in the Preakness a couple of years ago. He's nobody better on the front end, but there's a lot of firepower behind him at a distance this horse is iffy at. I can't take the chance. I can't do it. And it's because Silent Tactic isn't going to give this horse, let him have a break. Baby Vino's not going to let this horse have a break. Sea Strike's not going to let him have a break on a track that's likely not speed favoring. Early speed does well at Saratoga, but I don't know that it'll have a market advantage over the rest of the field, I would say. I think Leading Change and Napoleon knock heads. Sea Strike is close pursuit. Give me the Golden Tempo Puma exacta box. Okay, Prabhaka. Also, Iron Honor did all the dirty work in the Preakness. He pressed and had the perfect trip. Yeah. The CR. With the Stuart, with the CR is back-to-back 120. Class ready. Yeah. Yep. That's right. Yeah. He's confounding in some ways. But as I've said, I mean, had he run in the Derby, I would have thrown him out immediately. And I think it's kind of the same thing here. I just don't see this horse getting a mile and a quarter where he can wire this field, not with the type of pressure, because they all know that's what this horse wants to do. And there's a couple of horses who want to do similar to the same thing. They want to be up amongst leaders. He's not going to be able to relax. That's the thing that I just can't. I can't do it. Let's see. Debbie says all of his races have been faster paced. Not all. Well, you look at the Haskell. That wasn't overly fast. The Preakness was, but I think it was because this track was so speed favoring. Don't forget that day. There had been a big break. They had 4 turf races in a row, and the track was playing very, very speed favoring. You recall, incredible. Any of the late runners did nothing. Like they weren't even close. So he had some assists there. Now the Haskell was probably a little bit better effort because he didn't have the track necessarily working in his favor, but he didn't finish the job. So I'm going to let him go. I can't, Gio says you can't kiss all the girls. Now, the Puma is a tough call for me. The pedigree screams mile and a quarter. You got Javier Castellano aboard. And we talked about how he's paired his career best from the Florida Derby to the Haskell, and it was coming off the bench in the slop. Tappets have no problem in the mud, as I recall. But here's what bothers me. 3 straight 119s, even with the race rating increasing from the Tampa Derby to the Haskell. 116, 117, 118, and he ran 3 straight 119s. What that tells me is that perhaps he's tapping out, that's the best he can run. I might be wrong with that. I think he's a horse you got to use. Yeah, and Sean, he's had trouble breaking too. I will use him. I'm assuming, Jeannie, you're talking about Napoleon Solo. Okay, that's fair. You can make a case for Napoleon Solo. I think you can. He just doesn't. There's just not enough there for me. When I know what I've got from the back coming at him and what I know is going to be pressuring him on the front, I think it's going to be a very tough race for him. Could he stay in the money? Potentially. So the Puma, to me, is a fringe player because he could definitely improve second off the layup, but he really has the look of a horse who may be plateauing a bit. It's a tough call with him because, I had those questions about him finishing. He had trouble in the Sam F. Davis, but that Florida Derby, I thought he should have, the way he ran, he should have won it. And the thing that really always bothered me was, even though I had him in the Tampa Derby, the fact that they were getting to him in the stretch. And he looked like he had that race wrapped up in it. And it turned out he just, he just hung on to win. So he's a really tough call. I can go either way with the Puma. Either way, for sure. Renegade, I think that Jim Dandy was pretty impressive in some respects. It was a 5-horse field, that's true, but it was just the way he put the pedal to the metal. He's another one, the career high off the bench and a horse who fires every time. I got to believe that he's going to take another step forward. He has that look to me. He's already proven at running against the best of this 3-year-old crop. He's been effective. Belmont, he had a little bit of an excuse. I think Renegade's really strong here. I mean, he's definitely a very strong candidate. Hey, Jeannie, I mean, what the thing is about this crop? I mean, we've been wrong about them. And I think that the reason we're wrong about them a lot of times is they're not very good. But the one thing we do know that you have to say, the one thing we do know is Golden Tempo will get 1.25 miles. We know that. And we know nobody's been able to beat him at 1.25 miles. So I think it's Golden Tempo. I think there's some players. I think Renegade's a player here, and it's not going to surprise me if he wins. So those are two, the 9 and the 5 we have to use. I'm going to toss C Strike because of the step up here and the fact of the nature of the way he runs. I got to believe the pedigree's going to hurt him at some point. I mean, I know Chad Brown said he wants to go longer, and maybe he does, but his pedigree doesn't scream it. And when you step up in class, that's when it makes the difference. And at 5-1, I don't like the price at all, so I'm going to let him go. I think Baby Vino, if anybody's going to do it, I think it might be Baby Vino. I'm going to tell you why. Looking at this race shape, where we know who the speed is, we know there's enough pressure to keep Napoleon Solo honest. We know Baby Vino is going to be rating right behind him if he gets the trip. And we know he's progressing and heading in the right direction. So tactically, he could very well get enough steam built up that they can't catch him from behind. And we know, he's dangerous. I think Baby Vino is very dangerous in this spot. He's a prime use. So if I had to look, just what the 5 or the 3 horses are going to be my primes are the 5, the 8, and the 9. From what I can see right now. Silent Tactic may have taken a step forward, but he's hard to trust because we know what's happened when he's run against the better 3-year-olds. We know what Renegade did to him in the Arkansas Derby. Now, it's later in the year, but I think he's more of an in-the-money player. I can't see him winning this race. So I'm just going to put I'm going to go for the win. I'm just going to put him in the comp. Golden Tempo. Use. Pardon my. Fringe, I'm going to use 10. And You know what? If I go back and look up this field, okay, you ready for this? And Jeannie, I think I like what you said. I really do. That makes a lot of sense to me. And given the thing is, given the mediocre nature of this crop, there's nothing to say he couldn't stick around. I just can't see him wiring the field. He's going to have to do that. I mean, I think he's got the right jockey to give it a shot. Debbie, I can't do it. He really needs a break. A couple years ago, there was a horse named Simplification. Matthew DeSantis and I loved that horse. I love that horse. I had him in the Fountain Youth, I believe it was. But we noticed Antonio Sano's a trainer at Gulfstream, likes to run his horses a lot. And it became apparent the horse really needed some time off. You could just see it. It's like he's tired. And that's what I think you got with the Ocelli. Hasn't had a break of any kind. And I think they're going to the well too many times with this horse. I think he needs like a month or two off and then put him in a maiden. Yeah, I did too. I love Simplification. He got fourth. I can't see it. And I can't even see him getting in the money because you've got two other closers who I think are much better than he is. My prelim is Golden Tempo, Renegade, and Ocelli for the win. Ocelli? I can't see that, Mr. Hill. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Hey, listen, why not? He's going to be a price. He's going to be a price. I mean, why not? But he's going to be a price. But so, what do we think? I mean, is there? Let's get a little. All right, we've already seen from everybody. Give me their top three off the top of their head right now. Just give me the numbers. You don't have to type out the names. Sean, bless my lighter so my cigar will stay lit. Okay, David. Ooh. Okay, Laura. I like that, Laura. I'm not averse to it at all. Yeah, he could be. He could be. 958. Robert Lex. Bless the letter. Thank you, sir. 984. Okay, Joe. I like that. I have no problem with that at all. I think it's going to be hard to. I can't leave Renegade off though, but I like it. And you know what? this is one of those contrary thinking kind of races where actually, because it seems like, a lot of people are going to be looking at the same horses. This is where you want to sort of see if you can get creative, maybe with some kind of a crazy ticket, like some kind of crazy trifecta. I'm going to be thinking that way. Sean, you and I, that's going to be our project at Saratoga. We're going to, aside from other things, we're going to do the pick. You and I are going to come up with a pick 5. We're going to find a table and come up with a mutual ticket. And then when we get to the Travers, we're going to try to get a little creative. Debbie goes, Golden Tempo, Ocelli, Renegade. Okay. Hey, be adventurous. Why not? Renegade, Baby Vino, Golden Tempo. Nina, I don't mind that at all. Renegade takes more money than Golden Tempo again, despite losing 2 straight. Yeah. There's always going to be love for a horse like Ocelli, but to me, the issue more than anything is you've got 2 other horses who want to do the exact same thing, and they've proven to be better. That's what bothers me about it. So could he still clunk up in the 3rd or 4th? You bet he could. Sure. But he looks tired. He just looks like a horse who needs a break. That's my issue more than anything else. My pick 5, I haven't got to it yet, Robert. The pick 5s I usually make available on the website with my full card selections. And I haven't looked. I couldn't fashion one right now for you. I have to look at it, but you'll have it be available right at thewire.com. I have to do it that way. I'm sorry, but I'll have individual posts for all the stakes races, so you can probably get a pretty good feel for how I'm going to go. He looks very interesting, Joe. Might be. Yeah, he could be. He also might not be, too. He might be just coming into his own. He was already pretty good, but maybe he's taking another step forward. That's what makes this race great, is that, you really got to drill deep and find those signs that a horse is ready to take that step forward. And, hey, and like a horse like the Puma, he could go either way. You go either way with him. He's a hard one to figure out. Yeah. The live hit up there. Sure. Okay. When we get up there, we'll investigate it. We'll try to. Yeah, we could do that. Sure. It's a good idea, actually. Interested in using number 1 a little too. He's another one that's kind of hard to figure out, but I just got a feeling that I think Flavian Pratt jumping off him says a lot. I really do. But he's a hard read. He's a hard read. It just looks to me like I don't know. He's taking a step forward. Coming off a layoff, running against Older, I want to see that blow the field away effort. I didn't see it. Okay, who's this now? Cottonman. I'm going to retire. You get that, you might be able to. 4, 10, 11, 12. Who's do we have 12 horses in this field? Or we have a different race? The bad thing is this 3-year-old crop is overshadowed by the handicap. Well, that's not a bad thing. I like having a good older division. the sport needs it. It's great to have these horses staying around at 5 and 6, and hell, last year, God, you had Fierceness, Sierra Leone, Forever Young, all in the racing against each other. I love it. I love it's not the handicap division anymore. I wish it still was. Then you'd really get a feel for how good some of these horses are. But well, what do you think? Have we beat it to death? We covered the Travers. If it were me, they would all, like the old days. The 3-year-olds would all run at 4. You couldn't be a stallion unless you would run at 4. That's what I would do. It'll never happen, but I'd love to see it. Let's see. No particular order right now. I'm on the C Strike Emerging Market, Napoleon Solo, Silent Tactic. So you want speed, speed, speed. Interesting. It's an interesting take. Interesting take. Okay, have we any other questions? Anything else? I mean, I feel pretty good about it. A lot can happen over the course of the week. Certainly, if anything does, we'll post updates or whatnot. But I think it's golden tempo. I'm probably more certain about golden tempo in some respects, than I was sovereignty last year, because just the crop is so mediocre, and he's the only one I know is cool at 1.25 miles. I don't know. Oh, good. I'm always happy when you guys, as long as we're having fun, that's the most important thing. So let me just tell you, for what comes up, happens this week. I believe there's 6 stakes races at Saratoga. We'll probably have individual posts on all of them. And we'll have the full card available, all the selections at rightatthewire.com. And that will include best bets, value plays, long shots, as well as the selected sequences. And we will have the late pick 5. And we'll probably put a pick 6 ticket on there as well. What else was I thinking of? So there'll be plenty of content available. Sean has a nice idea there. We'll try to get a live feed from the Travers. So we'll try to post something from race day. And because it will be a mutual pick 5 ticket between Father Sean and myself, that we can post for you guys. I'd be willing to do that. So anyway, if there's nothing else, I'm glad you guys had a good time. I hope this was helpful. As I always say, I hope this helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck. Nina, I haven't looked at the undercard, but there's 6 stakes races. It's bound to be pretty good. I will say this, though. Travers Day tends to be a little on the chalky side. Now, if you played Saratoga today, you'd never agree with me on that, because it was graveyard of favorites today. But, I mean, I've had some Travers days where I had 7 or 8 winners, just because it was just all chalk. But, when you have years where there's a clear favorite in each division, that'll happen. But anyway, you'll have posts on all the undercard stakes races. That goes without saying. And so we'll have that all available for you. So I'm going to call it, if there's nothing else. And again, I hope this was good for you guys. And yes, Joe had You hit the nail on the head. Let's all have a great Travers Day. And now that I'm thinking, I wouldn't be, if we can do it, if I can find the time, we might have maybe a little preliminary Travers discussion. If I can run into Father Sean soon enough before the races start, we'll have a little. I don't know. Sometimes my eyes are bigger than my stomach, so. But anyway, let's see. Mr. Hill says, "You're very welcome, Laura. Always a pleasure. Since I came back to horse racing the year with Flightline, Life is Good, Country Grammar, Baby Yoda, Stiletto, and more, I've forgotten opinions." Well, I think they're all. Are you Tiny Tim now? Yes, thank you, Sean. Since I came back to horse racing the year with Flightline, Life is Good, Country Grammar, Baby Yoda, Stiletto, more forgotten. They're all pretty good. I thought they were good. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun Travers Day for sure. There'll be plenty of memories created. I'm sure of that. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, then I again wish you all the best of luck. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon. And until then, be well.